Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hope everyone's doing well. Give everyone a few minutes to check in, but Monday Q&A session today. Just want to make sure everything is working here. There's always a question mark when it comes to this stuff. All right, it looks like we're good. All right, so hopefully you guys watched Module 4, and I've been super busy. Module 5 is a beast. It's like almost 15 minutes long. So it seems like I'm just putting more and more information into each one of these modules, but I want to make sure I'm thorough and I put everything in there. So again, if this is your first time here, or just a reminder, what we'll do is we'll take questions related to the module, which was finding land and I can't remember, finding land and farm design. And then if there's time at the end, I'll take general questions, but I want to make sure that we stay on track and treat this like a course. So I'm taking questions on the module on Thursday. But as I said, if you have questions that are unrelated to the topics, save those to the end. I will get to those, but make sure that they're on topic, at least for the first chunk of time. And before we get into taking questions, because that's what I'm really here to do, a big thank you to the sponsor, Paperpot Co., sponsoring this entire course, and literally would not have happened without their help. And so I'm really appreciative of that. And I really recommend that if you're looking for any tools for this season, go check out what they have. I will be doing a separate module about tools down the road, but consider them if you're going to go looking to purchase some stuff. Also, check out Diego's podcast, Farm Small, Farm Smart. Tons of great information there. If you're nerdy like I am, you'll enjoy it. And there's also written resources at paperpot.co/Josh. So go check those out as well. So again, huge thanks to Paperpot Co. I just want to make sure that you guys are showing them some love as well. So I appreciate every one of you guys for showing up today. Hopefully I can answer as many questions as you have. I'm really here for you every Monday until the course is over. So we got another, see, we're in week 4, so we have 16 more of these or so. I think it's going to be 20 modules. But it's been cool. It's been cool. It's been really nice to be able to make these videos that are really focused on just delivering information. And I don't know. Hopefully you guys are getting a lot out of them. I think they'll get more interesting. I think a lot of you guys are sick of hearing business stuff, but we'll get into prepping ground and building beds next time in Module 5. That module is done. I'm starting to work on the next one, which is no-till practices and living soil. So a lot of that nerdy soil stuff and bed building and a lot of the stuff that you guys are looking forward to. There'll be a ton of that stuff coming up. So anyways, what questions do you guys have today? Make sure you get those in, and I'll make sure I answer them. And also, just a reminder, if you're looking to support me and the channel, there is a PayPal account down below. If you guys are looking to help me out in that way financially, it'd be greatly appreciated. But again, nothing will ever be behind a paywall, so just keep that in mind. All right, let's see here. Pizza is here, nice. And he loves Mondays now. Yeah. I never didn't think about that, but adding this on Monday is awesome because most people don't like Mondays, but something to look forward to. No, not brewing anymore. All right. Here's a question. I skipped over a few things here. Dutch homestead from the Netherlands. Helena, sorry. Good to see everybody in here. All right. Let's see. Okay. Why is this so little? Sorry, issues on my end, like usual. Okay, here we go. Sorry, getting the formatting right here. Hi, Josh. I have a property in mind. My only concern is that it has several cedar trees that I have that I have to remove, and that the soil may be acidic. What are your thoughts? Test the soil. See how acidic it is. Make adjustments ahead of time if you're going to be building beds in the future. I talk a little bit about this in the next module, but I don't worry so much about it. If you're worried about the pH, test it and then make adjustments, because The thing about pH adjustments is they take a long time to make, because remember the pH scale is like a logarithmic scale. So it's like from a 6 to a 7 is 10 times, or a 6 to 8 is 100 times, like the Richter scale, for example. So it takes a long time to move pH. So that's something that I check ahead of time. But again, how you're going to be prepping ground will depend on, if you need to be worried about that and those sorts of things. I'll cover that in Module 5 for sure. But first thing is probably just get the soil tested. Do you think having... Whoop. Trying to get these comments on the right spot here. Sorry, guys. The software is super cool, but... All right. All right. Do you think having a market garden will increase the property value? That is a super interesting question. I don't think I've ever really thought about that. I think it'll depend on where you are, right? If you live in a really fancy neighborhood where everyone has really manicured lawns and, perfect pools and backyards and stuff, then it probably won't help your resale value. But right now, I think real estate is crazy, and so I think everyone's houses are appreciating for the most part. I don't know. I don't think it would increase the value. Maybe if you're in a rural area where a lot of people have gardens and stuff, it might be beneficial. I'd probably depend on where you are in your lots, and like kind of like houses that are around you. Hi, Richard. You're very welcome. Oh, you get days off? Just kidding. All right. You have, is it Appia? I have land, but there are coconut trees everywhere. Should I clear them down? Unless you want to have a coconut farm. Depends on what you want to do. I mean, you can clear trees. I don't know how involved coconut trees are. My only experience is with the kind of trees that we have here. If you need the space to grow, and you're set on doing a market garden or growing vegetables, then you're going to need sunlight and open space. So that's up to you. I don't like cutting down trees, so I would only do it as like a last resort unless there's open space somewhere else or somewhere else you want to grow food, those kinds of things. But you need space. If you're set on doing a market garden, you're going to need some space to do it. So we had trees cleared here. Yeah, it was a lot. It cost a lot. It was very disruptive. Plus, cutting down trees just sucks. I don't like cutting down trees. If I'm skipping over questions, it's because it's unrelated to the topic. All right. Love your pallet-based, compost-based. Thank you. Credit to Gene for that. Gene is the brains behind that for sure. You mentioned receiving shipments of compost in this module too. How much compost do you make yourself versus truck in? So I don't make very much. My farm is tiny, and there really aren't that many inputs. I'm selling most of what I'm growing. There is some crop residue, like the greens off the tops of carrots, and when I pull out lettuce and stuff like that. But there's not that much material. And that stuff breaks down so quickly and turns into like absolutely nothing. So I don't know how many yards a year we're going to be able to make here, but I would say it's probably like 1 or 2, maybe. Like, I don't know. I'm thinking about what I have out there. It's not that much. Like, compost breaks down and gets so small, especially a lot of that like food waste. And, because we compost all the stuff from our kitchen too, from our house. So when I get a compost delivery, it's 30 yards. So it's a full like big dump truck thing that comes in. So the compost that we make is really used for amending flower beds like around our house, or I might screen some this spring and use it with some of my potting mix just to stretch that a little bit and get some more of that stuff going on. I might lay some down in my beds with some commercial compost when I put those 2 tunnels to sleep for the summer. I'm not sure yet, but we use it for things like we use it to build the hedgerow bed, which we're going to be planting soon. So we've used it for a lot of things. Actually, we did use a lot of the compost for that. But in my beds, I'm using all the commercial compost. So, I bought 90 yards so far on this farm. I still have probably 5 or 10 left. Hi, Devin. Working on the property next to conventional farmers. What are considerations to make to ensure we don't incur their wrath? How to keep our operation clean from overspray from theirs. I don't have any personal experience with this. You guys know where I've grown food. There are certain rules for organic standards in terms of if you are organic certified, but I'd probably use those anyways about like how much buffer zone you need. I would look into that. Ask if you have an organic certifier, ask them. Yeah, the best thing is you got to leave so much space. I don't know what the numbers are. You could also plant hedgerow. You could have hedgerows or other plants that absorb things, and that sort of stuff. But there are some like guidelines for that. I just don't know what they are because I haven't grown in that situation before. So keep that in mind. All right, 8% slope in some areas. Is it viable to use greenhouses on the land and adjust as needed? I don't know what 8% slope means. I've never actually like calculated my slope here, so I don't know if that's more or less than what I have. So if it's super extreme, the best bet is to terrace it. So a great example, if you want to check out, I've done videos with Sage Hill Ranch Gardens out in Escondido, California, north of San Diego. Go check out there. I have videos on my channel and then also on No Till Growers. We made a few videos with them too. And they terraced it, and they started with like 1-bed terracing and then 2-bed, and then they went down. Now they're doing like 8-bed terraces, so they just bring a bulldozer in and clear it out. But they have a pretty extreme slope there. I don't know. Again, I don't know what 8% means in my head. If you're doing tunnels, it depends on the tunnels. Like for me, I think I'm on the border of how much slope I can get away with. Now, the Farmer's Friend tunnels, you can put them on a slope. They obviously recommend that they are on a flat piece of land, but you can put them on a slope, which I did. The Rimmel nursery greenhouse that I have, the Rimmel greenhouse, they told me I cannot put it on a slope. Like it has to be flat. So the way I did that was we had longer base poles on the low side, on the downhill side, and then made it level. But if you look at it, you'll see that it's like one side is much taller than the other side, the one on the downhill slope. So there's some way around it, but if I had to go with a bigger tunnel from Rimmel, I was probably going to have to like level the ground out back. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to go with the Farmer's Friend tunnels. But the other challenge with growing on a slope is everything's on a slope, like even in the tunnel. So everything's falling downhill all the time. It's just kind of awkward. You kind of have to get used to it. I know that when people come over and they're walking through the tunnels, it's really awkward for them because it's on a slope and tools, and there's a little bit of technique to it. So if you can terrace it, I think that would be great. There's some challenges with that too. You definitely lose a little bit of space and it takes a lot of work. It depends on the greenhouses to answer your question. As I said, the caterpillar tunnels can take a little bit of slope, but a lot of the other ones will they'll tell you that you need to level the ground first. Joy, I hope I said that right. Stress importance of keeping bed sizes the same. Yes, absolutely. I'm planning to do 36-inch beds for the first time this year. I grow lots of squash that I always left 6 feet for. Possible to keep vines in 36 inches. Yeah, so it depends on the kinds of squash. Some squash gets huge. And what I usually recommend for those beds is... let's talk about the squash for a little bit. So I grow patty pan squash, the one that I've been growing lately, and I plant them on my beds. They get a little out of control. When I wasn't growing in tunnels, I would plant them on the outer beds of a field block. So and not plant them in the center, kind of plant them to the outside so that when they grew, they kind of grew over out into like a hedgerow or a walkway or something like that. So I could still get by to access the beds inside, or just plant like a whole section of squash and just let them go crazy. And then you can kind of just climb in there to harvest and let them do their thing. If there's an area of your farm that you're just going to grow squash in, then sure, set them up for squash. But if most people aren't growing one crop per bed per year, so you're going to be rotating something else into that spot. And you also want to think about crop rotation so that whatever's going after the squash is something different. And hopefully the following spring and summer, you'll be putting the squash in a different area as well. So to me, I think just keep all the beds the same. Maybe you can space them out a little bit more, in the beds. That's a little bit further apart. Maybe that'll help a little bit too. I know they'll still get the same width, but it won't be just as crowded. So if you're going 36, let's see, if you have a 36-inch wide bed with, let's say, an 18-inch walkway, that's 5 feet on center. Is that right? No, 4.5. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a problem growing squash in a 36-inch bed system. So, I mean, I do it on a 30-inch, but I'm growing patty pan, which I don't think are quite as big as some of the other squashes. So, but I think the benefits are there. It might get a little hairy with those big squash plants, but the fact that you can rotate other crops in and out and put the squash in other locations in future seasons, I think is valuable for sure. All right, Tyler. How impactful is south slope grade versus flat? Minimal 1 to 2%. I can't tell how much is delaying my growth. No just slope versus RCF and what I've noticed. So, I like a slight slope for drainage. I think I mentioned that in this module, but RCF was like completely flat, which it was hard actually because I couldn't get water to move when it rained hard there. If you are a pretty significant slope, then you probably want to be on the south side of that slope because of sunlight exposure. I know I mentioned Sage Hill before. They're actually on the northern side of the slope, so they know like at a certain point of the year, they just like stuff won't grow or grows super slowly, and they know like a certain date when things kick off again. So let's see here. Is your slope are you on the northern side? Is that why? I don't think if you don't have a lot of trees around, flat versus 1-2% slope that's south facing, I don't think it's gonna make that much of a difference for sunlight. I guess if that's your question. Hopefully I answered it, Tyler. If not, follow up, please. Have you used pallet wood mulch? No, I have not. I'll talk about mulch in the module on Thursday, but I just get them from from tree companies. So this was actually in this module when I was talking about material handling, asking about how I store my compost, and you can see the visual there. I also get more into it in the module on Thursday, but basically it's in my driveway and I have a tarp over it. That's how I keep it. The compost that I get delivered, the compost I'm making, as you saw, it's in those pallet compost bins that we put together. All right, Helena, I tried pronouncing your name before. I apologize if I got that wrong. So depends on what your goals are. This is back to, I think, the first module, which was setting goals. And if you're trying to make a full-time living off of it versus kind of farmsteading, right, where you're growing some food and you're selling some of it, then you need less acreage. It depends on how much money you need to make and how much time you want to put in, because just expanding your farm just brings on a whole bunch of other things. So my example, I'm doing 1/8 of an acre, and it's a part-time job. Also, if you want to keep the land area down, tunnels increase your output significantly. So if you have tunnels, you'll get a lot more food out of the same space. So, and depending on how you're selling food, as I've said, if you're doing a CSA, then you need a lot more acreage. If you're just growing and selling what you can at a farmer's market, you can kind of do whatever you want. So you can start as small as you want. There's no harm with starting pretty small. I think it's more manageable that way for sure. All right. right, not too many questions, guys. Unless I'm talking too quickly, which I definitely tend to do. Matt, I don't really know if you have a question here, but 30 acres of basically unmanaged pasture that has cows on it for 20 years. Nice. That's going to be really fertile, as long as it was managed decently. Has become unable to manage due to health reasons. Yeah, I mean, if you have that many acres that's open, I would probably do something pasture raised, some sort of chickens or something, or cows or whatever. Unless you have equipment and you want to, I don't know, grow hay or something like that. I would probably do animals, but I've never owned 30 acres of open land, so. I don't think it's related to this module, but I start my own plants, so either direct seeding or doing transplants. But you can buy starts for sure. How do you make the slope to be gradually draining the water and not keeping water here and there? Well, for me, I can only speak on the property that I've worked on, which is, the farm here, in that we just put the ditches, as I showed in that module, off contour. So if they're on contour, they're running like just parallel with the slope, and what'll happen is the water will come down and stop there and won't drain. But if you turn it just slightly, then the water will drain out downhill. If you have it too steep, then the water will pick up speed, and you want to keep the water moving, but don't let it move too quickly. So for us, we just had it slightly off contour, and that's been working pretty well. So when it rains hard, you can see the water moving, but it's not like moving super quick unless it's raining really hard, and then just have a lot of water moving anyway. So that's how I've done it. It's been working out pretty well here. Yeah, well, I'll talk about this with transplanting in a future module. But yeah, one row down the middle of the bed, and you can interplant too. So I'll get into that stuff in the future. Coming up on Thursday for compost and building beds. All right, bed width 36-inch wide. I did some 36-inch beds. If you guys have been following along, you know that I had that other tunnel that I built first on the farm, and it was 12 feet wide. So I experimented in there a few times with different sized beds, and the last iteration I had 36-inch beds in there. And I don't know if it was just because I was just used to 30-inch beds, and so it felt awkward to me, and I didn't like it, or it was just the fact that, like, physically I didn't feel comfortable straddling 36-inch beds. But you don't have to straddle the beds. There's a lot of farmers that just don't straddle beds. And you can work it from either side. I know, like, Jesse does 48-inch beds, and he just treats them almost like two 24-inch beds, so he just works them from either side. There's a lot of options out there, but keep in mind when you start going off the 30-inch bed width, you lose some of the tools that are really geared towards 30-inch beds. Not to say that you can't improvise and make things work, but it's kind of set up that way, so I like it. But 30 inches can be pretty much straddled by most people unless they're really short. I think most people feel pretty comfortable straddling a 30-inch bed. I think that's kind of why that width has become so common. So that's what I go with. I really like 30 inches for sure. Future module, we'll do one on transplanting and direct seeding. Oh, maturity dates are consistently longer, and I can't tell from the grade is affecting that. Well, is it consistent? Like, is like the beds that are higher, are they shorter, longer? Could it be like an erosion thing, nutrients? I I mean, there's always like little things on farms that you have to learn, like, oh, if I plant these things here, they grow more slowly than if I plant things there. And then after a season or two, you learn that and you kind of work that in your system. There's all these like little microclimates and quirks and stuff on farms. So you probably learn those over time. But yeah, I'd be curious if you figured out it was related to like sun exposure or something like that. You could also time it. You could go out there one day and watch this, figure out how many hours each bed gets or each, field block gets based on the slope. If you're thinking that that's what it's caused from. All right. Andrea, top 5 things you want if you're going to lease a property for 3 years. Cool. In this module, I definitely went over the things you'd be looking for, but leasing for 3 years, if you have decent soil, that'll help a lot. So you don't have to bring in as much material. That would be a bonus. If you're going to be selling there, you want to think about, if you can sell there, the legality of it, and if there's access for people to come. Is there water for irrigation, water to wash vegetables? Is there electricity? If it's an urban area or actually any area, is there any contaminations in the soil? So I guess a soil test would be good to start with. Material handling. I'd still think it's probably all the same things I mentioned in the module that you'd want to consider. The one thing is that if you know it's going to be 3 years and you're going to leave after 3 years, you're probably not going to invest in the soil in the same way that you would if you own the property. So you want to think about that just a little bit differently in terms of soil management and also building infrastructure because you might be leaving. So you probably think about more portable infrastructure like, portable tunnels. If you're doing tunnels, make sure your wash station, you can take that with you, that you're not investing as much. But I think the things you're looking for on a leased piece of property are going to be pretty similar to like buying it because a farm is a farm. You need the sort of same infrastructure. But I would say you'd probably want to hope that the soil is a little bit better so you wouldn't have to invest so much in that. Hey, Curtis, do you think a tunnel would do well in Florida? I'm worried how well it would hold up through a hurricane and also not be usable through the summer heat. So in Florida, you probably can't grow much in the summer anyways. I interviewed a farmer in Florida. I'm blanking on his name. I can't think of it right now. I can't remember what they do during hurricanes. Their frames are like cemented into the ground, and I think they actually leave them open or they take a section out during hurricanes so that the air can move. I can't remember. But the benefit of tunnels in the summer is that you can put shade cloth on them. So that's great. You can open up the sides all the way and then put shade cloth on them, and you can really extend your growing in the summer, or at least the time before and after the summer where it's super hot. You can like let stuff go into the summer a little bit longer and start things a little bit earlier if you have the shade cloth. I wish I could remember the name of that farm off the top of my head. Let me see something. Sugar Top Farms, I believe. He was super cool. And he if you go to Growers Live, which was on the No-Till Growers channel, I interviewed him and he talked all about this. I just don't remember all the details because he's in your context. He's in Florida and has tunnels. So I would go check out that. It's on the No-Till Growers channel. Anyways. But I think he takes time off during the summer. I don't think he grows completely during the summer. Hey, Corey, do you have any recommendations for approaching landowners about leasing to get started? I haven't personally done this, so I can't speak from experience, but I think it's like any other situation. Be polite, put together a well thought through offer about how it would work, how it would benefit them. I think if you're offering them something like, hey, if this land is not being taken care of, like if you find someplace that maybe is little overgrown or not being taken care of, and say, hey, like if I put a garden in here, I'll really take care of it and you won't have to manage it. That's a benefit for them. But make it worthwhile for them. So try to figure out what they want and maybe work it out. If they want money, if they want vegetables, if they want to just help a young farmer, there's a lot of reasons they may want to do it. So I'd probably approach it that way and like try to figure out, what you can offer them to make it work, and just have a good conversation and be professional about it. I think that would probably help a lot. 60-inch beds for the win. Nice. I couldn't even imagine, but hey, I mean, you get more growing space with bigger beds for sure. Did I use some sort of leveler in order to make a good slope in the ditches? I did not use any sort of leveler. Luckily, the slope in the back there at my house is fairly consistent. It kind of pitches in both directions. But what we did is we just ran a string line and then used a rotary plow to throw the soil out and then shovel. So we just knew, and it would go that direction. Now, if you have a piece of land that's kind of all over the place, you might need other machinery to come in there and level things out and stuff like that. But for my land, like, we could just kind of eyeball it and then just run a ditch through there, and that worked out pretty well. We did have the bottom of the third tunnel needed some land work, so I had a friend come over. He has like a mini skid steer thing and help move some soil around. But that was just kind of eyeballed again. But yeah, we had to build that soil up a little bit. It was kind of a low spot. All right, let's see here. All right, so as we're getting more questions in here, please get those in. It'd be great. And just take a minute to thank our sponsor again, Paper Pot Co. And I've talked about them all the time, but they literally made this course possible. I really recommend you go check out the tools and supplies that they sell. Also, Diego's podcast is awesome. Go to paperpot.co, and there's also resources about this course there. So paperpot.co/Josh. And again, huge thanks to Diego and Paperpot making this whole thing happen. So let's get some more questions. Let's see. Howard, didn't mean to ignore you, Howard. I have 2.5 acres on mild with 8-degree slope with southern exposure. Okay, southern exposure is good. Should I run my tunnels parallel so they're sideways to the south and tillage radish to break the soil? 8-degree slope, I would probably, like I said in this module, like more focused on where it fits on your property and drainage than having to do with orientation. I think if you're super northern climate, like, it might make the most sense to put them east-west, but I'd probably recommend the sort of design that I have where they're almost parallel with the slope, but just slightly off contour. It's been working well for me. I mean, I don't know what your property looks like, but with my slope, it works well. I think that system's been working out well. I don't have any complaints about it. And tillage radish, I'm going to be talking about starting beds in the next module, but I don't take that approach with cover crops and stuff, but you can. I'll talk about that, but you can. I don't know. I haven't. We didn't use tillage radish a lot, so I don't have a lot of experience with it. I know some people have had good luck with it, some people don't. But you'll see how I do my bed system in the next module. We'll get into crop planning and successions and stuff in future modules. And just want to say that if you have questions before I get to those modules, remember, if you go to my YouTube channel, like actually click on the YouTube channel and there's a search bar in the upper right, click the little search icon. You can type in any topic you want. So if you want to look up crop planning, type in crop planning. I have like 2 videos on crop planning. So that resource is always available for you guys. I always need to recommend that to people because people either don't know that there is a search option on YouTube, but there's so much content in there. So if you're looking for something specific, I recommend you check that out for sure. All right, Devin, how do you align your string lines? I've been working with a compass to attempt a proper angle that is parallel with our property. That is off by about 4 degrees. Okay, so every property is going to be different. I will talk about both of the properties that I've set up blocks on. So Raleigh City Farm, we used the sidewalk as our starting place. So we measured, I forget how many feet off the sidewalk. Even if the sidewalk wasn't like perfectly perpendicular, I wanted to use that because that would make it look straight. Like even if the city block wasn't quite perpendicular, I just used that as a reference. We measured off, I forget what it was, like 8 feet or 10 feet off the sidewalk, and that's where we put the bed stakes there on the end. So that was how I got that. Now, when you're determining like a tunnel or a field block, you want to do some basic geometry. So make sure that both sides are the same length, and then you need to measure the diagonals. So if you have both sides the same length, right, top, bottom, left, and right, and then the diagonals are the same length, then you have a rectangle. If the diagonals are not the same length, then you're going to have, I used to be a math teacher, you're going to have a parallelogram. So those are the things I do. So what we do is we'll measure out like the 4 sides roughly, just eyeballing it, put stakes in the ground, and then start measuring the diagonals and move things around until you get everything square. And that's sort of how I've been doing it. And then if I need to add on, like at Raleigh City Farm, we were doing block to block, I would just run a string line along the ends of the beds and just drag it out like another 50 or 100 feet, and then just pull it till it was straight. And that was the string line. And I'd also take that and measure that against the sidewalk to get my distance, so I knew that was straight. Here, when like we added the second and third tunnel, we just took the end of the first tunnel and pulled a string out further down the hill, and then staked that off, and then measured, and then did the same thing on the other side, and then again measured the lengths of the ends of the tunnels, the widths of the tunnels, and then the diagonals. And that's kind of, it takes a little bit of trial and error till you get it, but that's how I've been doing it. Yeah, use anything. I'm just rereading your question. Just use anything that you want it to be straight to. I mean, it doesn't matter where your farm is. It just, if you have it like you want it to look nice somewhere, like whatever the reference point is, I would start with that and then just start building rectangles off of that. Hopefully that answers that, Devin. Tiny house. I'm going to talk about this on Thursday for sure. But no, don't remove clay and gravel and putting in compost and mulch. No, I wouldn't remove anything. I would just start building on top. Again, that'll come up on the module on Thursday for sure. And you don't want to bury mulch. You don't want to do that. Nice. Yep, 3, 4, 5. Yep, good old Pythagorean triplet, as we call it in the math world. Yep, that's a great one too. You can also use the Pythagorean theorem. You remember a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So if you know your tunnel is 14 by 100, you can do a squared plus b squared equals c squared to get the hypotenuse and figure out what the diagonal should be. That'll be helpful too. So look, don't say you didn't learn anything in high school math. Yeah, there's a lot of ways around it, but I find that when you're measuring the diagonals, just make sure they're the same and the opposite sides are the same. All right. All right. I am at the bottom of the questions here, so not a lot of questions today, unless you guys have a few more. Okay. Well, again, like some of the big things I've been thinking about with this module is taking the time to lay things out on your farm so they're efficient. Hopefully you guys took to heart the thing about footsteps on the farm and making sure everything is close together as possible. That will save so much energy on your farm. It's unreal. And that's been a huge time saver for me. Like working on the farm here has just been so easy because everything is so close together, but it's also a tiny farm. So sounds like, let's see here. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I was Mr. Sattin for 5 years. The calculator section of the test. Oh, man. Sorry. I try not to bring math into this, but sometimes it can be useful. Thanks, Devin. Okay. All right. Let's see here. I'm happy to open this up for general questions. A little bit sooner than usual, but that's fine with me. So any questions while I'm here is fine. Yeah, let me know what you guys got. I do wonder about water rights and if asking forgiveness over permission would make sense. Putting irrigation is the next big challenge for our soon-to-come 50 by 50-foot beds. No, take care of everything up front. Like, imagine, I agree with that strategy for some things in the world, but when it comes to, like, the livelihood of your business, like, I wouldn't take a risk like that. Like, if you set up your whole farm and then you lose access to water, like, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, and that's going to be very expensive. So I would definitely cross all your T's, dot all your I's about that stuff and make sure that that's cool. Browntown Organics, good to see you in here. The scissors are great. Yeah, I never did any sort of updates on them. I guess because I had no complaints about them. The only thing I realized was... the first two tunnels, the poles are a little long, and when we did the third tunnel, we cut them a little shorter, and it makes all the difference because right now they kind of dig into the ground because we've added so much mulch there. So we might take like 2 or 3 inches off the poles so they easily can slide in. But otherwise, they've been fantastic. I've had no complaints. They're pretty quick. They're simple. They've been working well. Yeah, they've been good. We really don't order pizza very much. I make my own pizza, which is kind of not surprising if you know my background. But yeah, I make my own pizza. Like once every week or two, I make my own pizza. Beets, I transplant them 3 rows at 5 inches. So yeah, that's about it. And I made a video about beets. Yeah, so again, use the search engine on the YouTube channel, type in beets. Yeah, and the only thing is when I go to transplant them, if there's more than 2 seedlings in there, I'll pull them out. So I put 1 or 2 in, but yeah, I do normal 1-inch soil blocks and 3 rows at 5 inches. I use the gritter and just go. I use the in-betweens as well. I gave up on direct seeding. It's just so much more predictable with transplanting. On-site consulting, I can, yeah. I do a lot of video consulting, like distance stuff. But if you're local, yeah, send me a message. You can hit me up on Instagram or through my website. All right, Nikki, weighing the pros and cons of doing mixed greens versus head lettuce like Salanova and Mir versus direct seeding lettuce mixes. Thoughts? So it comes down to what you can sell. I think that's always the biggest question mark. If you're growing Salanova, it is a mixed green. Like you can get a variety. Like I grow the foundation mix. It's 4 varieties mixed together. I just plant them out and then cut them and mix them. So the direct seeding lettuces can be great, but also tricky. I used the All-Star mix from Johnny's, which was cool. Again, there's so many lettuces and lettuce mixes out there to try. I've tried so few of them. That worked well, but I really think in terms of yield, especially the things like Salanova and Mir and those kinds of lettuces, you're just going to get so much per bed. And the other benefit, there's 2 other benefits about transplanting. One is when it's warm out, it can be really hard to direct seed lettuce because it doesn't germinate when it's super warm outside. So you can germinate it like in a more controlled area, like a nursery or inside your house or whatever. That can be helpful. Also, if you're really trying to push the production on your farm, you want to do as many transplants as possible because you already have it growing for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks before you put it in the ground, versus if you put a seed in, you're starting at day 0. So to me, I always like to transplant whatever I can, especially because I have a very small farm and I'm trying to get the maximum amount of yield out of it. So that's my opinion on that, I guess. But it's what it's what people want. If people don't want Salanova or don't want Mir, then you have to grow something else. But in terms of head lettuce versus salad mix, again, it's what sells. Mir can go either way. You can sell it as a head lettuce as well. But Salanova, it's too nice to it's just nice to do a mix for sure. You grow a lot of greens. What's your favorite meals to make with them? I just eat salad. I eat a lot of salad. Like most meals, I have a side salad. Right now we have our own carrots too, which is great. A lot of that. And then the other green I grow is kale. So we just cook it up and serve it as a side a lot of times with whatever we're making, or throw it in soups. And been a lot of kale. Right now we have a lot of kale to eat. So, but I do like salad a lot for sure. Thank you, Devin. You're awesome too, man. Probably not joining Jesse's March Madness pool. I don't follow sports really. I know Jesse's really into college basketball, so he's a big Kentucky fan. But no, I don't think so. I like direct seeding for some crops when they make sense, like carrots. I direct seed carrots. But as I said earlier tonight or this afternoon, if I can transplant it, it will give me a bigger yield because I already have things growing before they go in the ground versus starting at 0. So it depends on the crop. And if you're asking about beets, because I was talking about beets, I did just say this, but they're so much more predictable for me when I do them as transplants. When I fill up a bed, it's the exact amount of plants that I want in the bed versus direct seeding where, you get what you get sometimes if you're not completely on top of the water, or maybe the weather doesn't cooperate in terms of temperatures. It's just when you're on small acreage and you're trying to really maximize your yield, anything you can do to get more food out of the ground is what the goal should be. And so for me, by transplanting, everything gets a jump start before it goes in the ground in terms of time. So that's why I try to do direct seeding as much as possible. Like with carrots, that's not going to happen. So those get direct seeded. Have you added stiff end walls to your greenhouse yet, or scissor doors with bungee cords still rocking? So no, the design I made in that end wall video is exactly how I'm still using them. I use those like, they're not bungee cords, they're like gear ties or something. I think I got them at Home Depot or Lowe's. They're like, it seems like a metal wire inside with like rubber on the outside, and you kind of like put it around and then you kind of just like twist it up like a big like tie. They've been great. I had to replace some of them, like the rubber bit wore out and it was just like the metal. But no, I haven't put any other structure up. And we had a crazy storm roll through this weekend, and yeah, the walls were fine. Like the big thing is you want to. I mean, I'm very protected because I have all those trees around me. So if you're in an area that's very much more open and subjective to heavy winds, it might be different. But for me, they were fine. Like it's been fine. You just got to close everything up because, like when we lost the plastic at Raleigh City Farm, if you guys were watching vlogs back then, it's because one of the sides was open and the wind came in and just lifted it off. But if everything's closed and tight, that's what will be fine. But yeah, the doors have been fine. I know someone asked me about the scissor doors before. Can you tell anything about the varieties you're keeping long, fresh, or is more the time harvest? I don't know which crops you're talking about, but for me, I just harvest and it goes out the next day. So like tomorrow is my harvest day. I'm going to deliver it on Wednesday morning. If it's terms of greens, yes, a lot of it has to do with time of day you harvest it and how you process them and store them. And I'll definitely do a whole thing about all that in future module. I would recommend, Christina, you check out which module was that? Crop selection and pricing, so module 3. So I talk about the different ones, but yeah, it's mainly experience and talking to growers. It's both of those things. I am in Raleigh, North Carolina. Jillian, head lettuce. Do people just not want it, or is there an issue with getting it clean? Just doesn't bring as much money per pound. What's the reason most farmers seem to go with mixed bay leaf? Because you get more money for it. And that's really, I think, the big thing. Now, some restaurants might want head lettuce because they're doing like sandwiches or something like that where they want like a bigger leaf. And so they might want that kind of lettuce. But for most of the restaurant, or all the restaurants I'm selling to, they like it because they're using it as salads or sides, or putting it in dishes in that way. Like they're not putting it on a burger kind of thing or a sandwich. So for them, they love it because they don't have to cut the thing apart. They don't have to wash it and dry it and store it. They just get it. It's in a bag. It holds well for the week. And that's why they love it. So again, it's how they're using it for sure. But some places will want head lettuce, depending on what they're doing at the restaurant. I don't remember the spacing. I will go over this in my direct seeding module. I use Mokum. Again, module 3. How have you dealt with the weird weather over the last few years? It's humbling, humor. In fact, I had a tree come down a couple days ago. I posted on Instagram. It's still hanging out. I haven't dealt with it yet. It hit the shed, and it's like dangling over my tunnels. And what can you do? You know, you can get angry about it, or you just deal with it. So the biggest thing that's helped me is the tunnels. That really has, you know, when we had like hurricane type weather come through, we don't get like full on hurricanes here because we're off the coast, but you know, we get remnants of storms and stuff, and sometimes we get heavy winds. And for me, it's like, I didn't stress about it. I just closed down the tunnel as best I could, and everything was fine. So that's been my biggest thing: tunnels and drainage. And I guess just, you know, being lighthearted about it. Joshua, what temperature do you start adding shade cloth for covering lettuce? How many cuts do you get in the summer before it gets bitter? I will not be growing this summer. I've said that plenty of times, so I don't have to worry about that. For me, I did not add shade cloth this year because what I realized was I wasn't getting enough hours of sunlight with my trees back there. So I had a little bit of an imbalance between the heat units and how much light I was getting. So I did want to put shade cloth on it. And in that case, I had a lot of struggling plants. And again, another reason why I didn't want to grow in the summertime. The best thing I would do is, you know, watch your plants, and they'll tell you if they start to stretch out, then you want to start using shade cloth and doing misting and things like that. In the summertime, I don't plan on a second cut. Like, it never is good in the summer, depending where you are. But here in the heat, one cut out, because the second cut's just not worth it. Plus, in the summertime, things are growing so quickly that if I put something new in the ground, it doesn't take long for it to grow. So in the summer, I don't plan on more than one cut. Also, the quality is never good on the second cut for me in my heat here. So I don't know. It depends on how much light you have, but you'll know when it's time. Like, you'll see, it'll just be unbearable if you walk in there and it's like just too hot. But misting helps a lot for sure too. I bought shade cloth and haven't used it, but I probably will cover my nursery for the late summer as I get ready to start plants for the fall because it's just so warm here. Mr. McGregor's Homestead, what are your favorite tools, and what would you say is your perspective on the basic tools to get started? Cool. I'm going to make a module about this, but I'm happy to talk about this now. Also, again, search engine on my channel. There's, I think, 3 videos about tools. I made one like every year, I think. Yeah, I made one every year version of that, like what's in my tool shed or whatever. I think if you're going to use the sort of same system that I use, a broad fork is really important for the first year or two. A good rake, wheelbarrow. You notice I'm talking about really basic tools here. Trying to think of what's hanging out there. Rake, wheelbarrow, maybe a good pitchfork for moving wood chips, buckets. A silage tarp is necessary for starting a farm, in my opinion. In terms of the fancy tools, I think the Jang seeder is not negotiable. And go to paperpot.co because they sell those, so go buy one from them. That's not negotiable. Like, if you're going to be direct seeding crops, don't even bother with the Earthway. Just get the Jang. You're going to be so happy. The other tools, I don't think a tilther is necessary. I think if you wind up transplanting a crap load of stuff, then the paper pot could be very useful for you. For me, it's not really applicable in my little context here. I think if you're doing a lot of baby greens, the greens harvester from Farmer's Friend is crucial. You go harvest a bed of like baby spinach or baby kale or arugula by hand, and then talk to me about the greens harvester, and you'll make your money back very quickly in terms of labor. So in terms of tools, like there really isn't very much. Maybe, I mean, of course you need some basic stuff like shovels and stuff, but in terms of like a weeding tool, I've been using a wire weeder for everything lately, either that or the collinear hoe. But yeah, if you want to see it before I make that module, go to my channel, type in tools. You should get an idea of what I've been working with for sure. What other YouTubers do you think have the same vision as you in the way they explain agriculture? I have not been watching farming content on YouTube lately, so you guys should probably know better than me. The first one that comes to mind is Charles Dowding. Charles, I think, there's a lot of similarities to how we grow with our no-till methods. Of course, Jesse Frost and I have a lot of shared values in how we do things. I don't know, like, are there other farming channels you guys are following right now? And I apologize, it's not that I just don't know. I don't watch that kind of content. There's a lot of homesteading channels out there, so maybe there's some information that those people are providing too. Yeah. I just don't know. I don't know how much farming YouTube content there is out there. And part of the reason is if you're farming, it's really hard to spend time on making YouTube videos, which is why it's been such a struggle for me over the last 3 years, because I am farming and I want to make the YouTube videos, and they both could easily be a full-time job. So trying to make that work is really challenging. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of it. I don't know. You're welcome. Also, I would recommend tunnels. Tunnels are awesome investments if you consider them a tool, and irrigation. Wash station. I didn't even mention wash station. I don't know. Those are the big ones. All right. Well, hang out for a couple more minutes. If you have questions, fire them in. Usually try to hang out till about 4:15 or 4:30, but it's really up to you guys and what questions you have. Yeah, I'm sure you can farm in Idaho. A lot of food's grown in Idaho. Very large containers and or bags, and yeah, I figured tunnels were on the list. Yeah, absolutely. I haven't had a lot of experience with that. I totally ran out of steam last year, but I was hoping to do some grow bags in the nursery because I've seen that be effective for other people. I know I was talking about Sage Hill Ranch Gardens before, but Spencer Rudolph does some cool stuff out there. He's doing edible flowers in grow bags, like in his nursery, like where it would just be kind of like a walkway. So there's definitely some possibilities. I was thinking about that and herbs, selling fresh herbs to chefs, but I talked to them and they were kind of like, not really interested. Maybe if I had them, they might buy them. So I haven't had a ton of experience with that. But if you're trying to do anything on scale, I mean, it's pretty hard to beat growing in the ground. It's just a lot more space and a lot more options there. But if you're constricted to space or for whatever other reason, I mean, you can make anything work with enough energy. Yeah, and I think if you watch that video, it's like Epic Farm on a hillside or something like that. There's some stuff in there about it, so I would check that out. His nursery is really cool. All right, let's see here. I'll wrap it up unless you guys have any more questions. Let me just let you know what's coming up. The module on Thursday is prepping soil and creating beds. As I said earlier in the live, it's like almost 50 minutes long. There's a lot of information in there. It took me forever to make that video. It's awesome. Pumped about it. And then we'll get into no-till practices and creative living soil. So reason why I go through my no-till stuff, some of the philosophy behind it, and the science stuff, and then also how I actually do it in practice, how I prep beds and how I work the ground and how all that works, and get into as many details as possible. And then after that, we'll get into crop planting and infrastructure and tunnels and all that kind of stuff going forward. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff coming up. I'm really excited about this. And, you know, if you guys have questions, come to the chat like you're here right now. Otherwise, we'll see you every Thursday morning with a module, and then Mondays for the Q&A. So yeah, it doesn't seem like anyone has more questions today. So that's fine with me, guys. Maybe we'll end it now. Oh, I see a couple more questions coming in here. Tyler, has turning a hobby into a job made it any less fun? Man, that's a great question. Yes and no. I'll be honest about it. You know, anything that you do repetitively, even if you love it, becomes repetitive. So there's some of that too. Also, once your family income relies on your farm a little bit, then it becomes a little bit more stressful too. But that comes from any entrepreneurial business that you are then like, you know, what you thought was fun or a hobby is you're actually relying on it. Then there's like a different like importance to it. So yes and no. Also, it's been fun, like, you know, spending my time doing it. So, but yeah, I think part of it is less fun. Like when you're first getting started and you're like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and excited, and then it's like, oh, another bed of lettuce to plant. Oh, another thing. But I do enjoy it. So yeah, overall, yes and no. Thank you, Pizza. Yes, hit the like button. Thanks, CLJ891. All right, I guess we'll wrap this up, guys. I really appreciate everyone coming out today and all the support. So again, go check out paywall.co for supporting them, and let Diego, let him know, say thanks for the course and for all the support. And again, if you're interested in donating and supporting the channel, there's a link down below. It'd be greatly appreciated. Otherwise, we'll see you guys Thursday with the module, next Monday with the Q&A. We'll just keep doing this. So take care.